There are some very shady characters, as we've told you many times on the show before, in our government, but we would never know about them and their corruption if it weren't for researchers like my next guest. I call him Cousin Trevor, although I can't quite trace the family tree because we have better things to do in our lives. But he's over in New Zealand, and he is the official commie hunter, and he is here all the way from Christchurch, New Zealand. Welcome to Smart Life with Dr. Gina, Trevor Loudon.
Hi,
what
cousin.
an honor.
Hi,
what
cousin.
An honor
always,
to have
always
you.
to be good with family.
So glad to have you in my studio. And you know that you have been really just a source. A resource sounds like too weak of a word. A source for those of us in the United States who we saw this happening. And at first, I remember when you started on this crusade as the official commie hunter, and I would have you on my radio program. I remember people saying, it's a little out there to say commie. You're really communists in America. That sounded crazy. Today, it sounds like I said, we're going to put gas in the car. It's as everyday as anything. And you are the one who's been behind putting this movement forward to say there are communists, they are among us, they are in our government, and they have a lot of power. Back us up. How did you get started in this?
Look, I started researching the New Zealand left, the Marxist influence in my country, and they were dictating our foreign policy for quite some time. And luckily, I got the chance of interviewing a New Zealander who had infiltrated the New Zealand Communist Party and was actually sent to Moscow for training at a high-level party school. And basically what he told me was the big secret of modern communism is the ability of small Marxist parties to infiltrate and control the much larger mainstream political parties. So what he basically said is the Australian Labor Party, the New Zealand Labor Party, and even the American Democratic Party are largely run by Marxists. And they are dictating the policies. So I was researching the US Democrats and the Communist Party in 2007, and that's where I discovered the ties between Obama and the Hawaiian communist Frank Marshall Davis. So I could see that Obama was destined for greatness, so I did a year's research on Obama. I uncovered a whole bunch of ties, a whole bunch of Marxist connections, and then I started to put that out on my websites, my blogs. Glenn Beck picked it up, others picked it up, and then I exposed Van Jones, the communist green job czar who Glenn Beck got kicked out of the White House. So from that point, I started touring the United States, which I'm doing right now. So yeah, what I'm basically saying is the Marxists took over the unions in this country in 1995, then they took over the Democratic Party, and Obama and his cronies are basically implementing Marxist policies in this country right now. It's a revolution just as much as Venezuela under Hugo Chavez or Czechoslovakia in 1948.
What did you do before this?
Look, I used to get up 2 o'clock in the morning and bake thousands of loaves of bread in my bakery. So I did that for a long time, but I was also always involved in politics in New Zealand. I was the vice president of the ACT party, which is a libertarian type political party in my country, which we had 8 members of parliament at one stage. So I used to be a small business person, plus I was always active in politics at a local level in my country.
And my favorite question for you, and we only have a minute left in this segment, but we're going to keep you into the next one. My favorite question for you is, you live in New Zealand. It's beautiful.
Why do I care?
Why do you care?
Yeah.
I loved your answer. You answered this for my children at my own dinner table at my house in Birmingham, Alabama, but I want you to tell the audience.
Look, if America goes down, if you go down, every Western country will fall. The Chinese are already knocking on my doorstep right now, and New Zealand's doorstep. So you look at the world right now, Russia's expanding, China's expanding, Iran is expanding, America is retreating. If this continues, the bad guys will carve up the planet amongst themselves. There is nowhere to run.
And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the communist connection to ISIS. We're going to talk about his book tour. We're going to talk about an exciting upcoming documentary that he is getting ready to march onward with. And we are going to talk about what you can do to stop the communist craziness in your own country. More in a moment with Trevor Loudon. Stay tuned. Hi, and welcome back to Smart Life. I am your host, Dr. Gina Loudon. And with me, I have another Loudon that I can't wait to talk more with. But just a reminder before that, you can watch us live and Cities around the country on Biz TV, growing all the time. Now on the air in New York, Philadelphia, and Orlando. Don't forget, most recently also in Los Angeles. Biz TV, it's your biz. And of course, you can view past episodes of Smart Life at moneybizlife.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. The official commie hunter from Christchurch, New Zealand, Trevor Loudon. You can find him at trevorloudon.com and at New Zealand Blog on Twitter. Trevor, it's an honor. I call you Cousin Trevor. We know we're cousins, but we both are, because there's nobody that spells their name like we spell our name.
Exactly.
But we are too busy to really take time to go into our genealogy.
When we've run the revolution, we'll sort that out.
When we run the revolution, we'll sort that out. Starting with something very local for me, being that I'm based out of San Diego, you warned me, I remember several years ago, it was about 2 years ago when you were here, we had dinner in Old Town with my family, and you warned us that Bob Filner is one of the communists that you have traced.
Yeah, look, Bob Filner, who was the mayor of this town until he got into a spot of bother over sexual harassment, was a his father was the head of the Pennsylvania Communist Party. He worked with Marxist groups like Democratic Socialists of America for decades. And he also was involved in a scam. There's a communist group in this country called the Committees of Correspondence who works with Communist Vietnam to try and get your country to pay them reparations for damage done during the Vietnam War. So basically the communists want your country to pay them for damage your troops did fighting off a communist invasion. That effort is sponsored by an international communist front called the International Association of Democratic Lawyers, and Bob Filner was right in there. He was actually sent to Vietnam to negotiate this by a communist front while serving in Congress. He's as red as it gets.
And he's also pretty much done, I think, in
Well,
politics.
politically,
by his
he's
own
gone.
doing.
He's
But
completely gone.
the sad part is it didn't have anything to do with his very blatant communist ties that you traced. And I even wrote about this, I'm pretty sure, for Town Hall or W&D, about your research that you'd done on him. And it was so compelling. I mean, it was a direct line trace. And that's not what took him down. It was his own...
No, it was his own peccadillos that took him down.
Exactly. All right, so this is what I want to get to, because this is what makes no sense to me. You look at ISIS, you look at the terrorist movement, if you will, in this country and, of course, abroad as well. And it seems as though the terrorists get along swimmingly with the communists. It makes no sense to me, Cousin Trevor, because everything that communism stands for is too loosey-goosey for the rigidness of Islam. And yet, the two seem to get along so well. Why?
Well, look, you've got to realise, we understand that the communists have been infiltrating the Christian churches in this country for 100 years. But they've also been infiltrating the Islamic seminaries in the Middle East, which are a lot closer. You know, they're a lot closer to Russia than the American churches are. So basically, we have liberation theology in Christianity, which is basically Christian Marxism. But you also have liberation Islam. So the Russians, the communists, have been infiltrating the Islamic movement for a long time. Like in 1974 or 72, I think it was, Andropov, the head of the Soviet KGB, had a meeting with Ion Pachepa, the head of the Romanian KGB, and they planned to send 4,000 agents into the Islamic world to stir up hatred against America and Israel. Now, Pachepa revealed this because he later defected to the United States. So basically, Islam is a battering ram against the West. That doesn't mean every Islamic terrorist understands that, just like every union member does not understand that their unions have been taken over by the communists, or every Democrat understands that the Democratic Party has been taken over by Marxists. But like it was also revealed that by a KGB officer, the one who died of thallium poisoning in London a few years ago, Litvinenko, I think his name. No, I just can't remember his name right now. But he revealed that the number one man in Al-Qaeda right now was a KGB agent trained by the Soviet FSB, the old KGB in Russia in 1994 and 1995. So you have these continuous ties going on. You know, the communists will work with the radical gay movement, they'll work with the feminist movement, they'll work with the Chicano movement, and they'll work with radical Islam. They also infiltrate the Buddhist churches in Thailand. They infiltrate the Hindu religion in India, whatever it takes to get power. So radical Islam, they don't care if bunch of medievalists, really, as long as they hate the West.
Okay, but so this is where I'm going to get down to the brass tacks with you, because I see the leadership in the Republican Party sometimes. You don't want to say colluding, but you want to say maybe kowtowing or bowing or just backing away on things that seem so fundamentally opposed to everything capitalist, in my opinion. Take, for example, the debt ceiling. Just take the debt ceiling. Okay, so are there communists in the GOP? I guess that's my question. Why would they not invade the GOP when they went to Christian churches, Christian universities? The Democrat Party, which used to be based a lot on very faithful people, many pro-life people, for example, did well in the Democrat Party. Those days are over. If you are not a lock, stock, and barrel, godless a Democrat who's anti-capitalist, you can't subsist in that party anymore. I see the GOP going that way.
Look, it certainly has been to some degree. Like the communists, like Dick Lugar, the senator from Indiana, he was a hardcore leftist anti-American. The communists used to infiltrate the Republican Party quite extensively. Jacob Javits, the senator from New York, he had his roots in the Communist Party, for instance. In recent times, and the mechanism that was always used was the unions, but the Republicans aren't so close to the unions now. The unions have thrown in with the Democrats almost entirely. So you don't get so much of the communist influence in the Republican Party. It's more the one world progressive, elitist, Ivy League type intellectuals who believe in a sort of an elitist type of communism, an elitist type of one worldism. So I say in the Republican Party, you've got a third progressives, you've got a third go-alongs to get-alongs, and a third constitutionalists and patriots. And the real battle for freedom in this country is which faction is going to win. Because if the progressives win, we're done. But if the hardcore, the Ted Cruzes and the Rand Pauls and the Jim Bridenstines and the Trey Gowdies and Louis Gohmert and people like that come to the ascendant, then this country has a chance of fighting back.
Do you categorize the number one goal of these communists that are in our country and all over the world trying to take over what is America for the reasons that you've stated? Do you say the number one goal would be to eliminate God? Is that just primary?
That's a real deep philosophical goal for the communists. But
can you explain why that matters so much?
Well, because
I think
they want to be.
You're more libertarian, if I could say that about you. You're not like a fundamentalist Christian type.
No.
So, but what I'm trying to get you to explain to audiences that even if you are an atheist, but you are a capitalist atheist, you should be for the one nation under God sort of thing because the communists want to remove it. Why?
Look, absolutely. Well, this is. Even from a purely secular point of view, this is a battle between good and evil. And the communists are motivated by the old, really it comes down to Milton, the reason Satan left heaven, because to Satan, it was better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. And this is the motivation of the communists. They want to rule. They want power. They don't give a damn what this earth turns into as long as they're running things. So really it is I applaud, America was founded as a Christian nation. It wasn't founded as a Buddhist nation or a Hindu nation or anything like that. So the roots of American exceptionalism come from Christianity. So I'm totally on board with with people supporting the concept of God and Christianity that have made this country great. The left wants to tear it down. Well, you saw that in the Democratic Party when they basically took God off their platform. Because so it is a real battle between God and good and evil and basically satanic forces.
And so that's what I want to get to with you, Trevor. We only have a couple of minutes left, but I really want to say, so what? So what? So what if the communists take over? We see that much of Europe has gone very socialist. They're still there. They're okay. So what? I want you to explain that picture with only 1 minute.
Well, basically, the only reason communism is still soft in some countries is you still have freedom left. If there was universal communism, you would have North Korea all over the planet, because there'd be no checks, there'd be no balances, nowhere for people to run. It will be hardcore Leninism absolute tyranny, North Korea over the entire planet, and the revolution would consume its own. You know, these people who would get into the communist movement do not understand that they are equally trapped.
Yeah.
Everybody is trapped in this horrible situation like North Korea now. Even the top people in the North Korean government are still trapped by the system. You have that worldwide. You have that in every country. Nobody wins, everybody loses, and evil rules.
Trevor Loudon, you're going to want to watch for his upcoming documentary. Also find out his travel schedule soon in Orlando, trevorloudon.com.